meeting for the education. Oh, I'll start over. Welcome to our Community of Practice meeting for the Education Fieldwork Group. We are so happy to see you today and to share some fun curriculum ideas, as well as some great updates, and to get a pulse on what we need at this stage in the fieldwork game as things keep changing and getting, settled, and then things pop up. So we'll go ahead and get started. Shannon, could you do the share the present view?
I'm sorry, I thought I was already on
present.
Yeah, just 1 second. There we go.
Awesome, thank you. So let's go ahead and introduce ourselves in the chat. So many familiar faces, but always want to capture anyone new coming on in. So thank you again for coming. We'll start with a quick, comment about fieldwork flexibilities. We'll go into some assignments that some of us in this group are using. We have 3 items to share with you for sure. And then we're opening it up if anyone else wants to share an activity that they do when they incorporate things with their virtual or in-person fieldwork. And then we'll go into a basic skills update and a quick needs assessment to see where we want to go this semester with the support we give each other in this community of practice. So next slide, we'll start with just making sure everybody is up to date with the CSU memo that announced that fieldwork flexibility and admissions for the 45-hour fieldwork class or CID course has been continued for this year. This is really just a suspension of it as an admissions requirement. And we have recently been confirming with a lot of the CSUs that yes, virtual fieldwork this fall is okay. Right. And so depending on the setup you have, it may include our fieldwork library we've created in our Canvas Commons, could include tutoring, mentoring, using some work experience, and other avenues. So wonderful. This does include spring. It is for the school year. However, although it's for the academic year, it's just waiving this as a requirement to get into credential programs. So when we've talked to the CSUs, we have confirmed that for most of them or all of them, we can use like the video libraries and alternatives for fall. As schools reopen, the conversation will need to continue. So this is technically a waiver of the admissions requirement to get into a program. And some CSUs have started talking as things have been opening up that they may require some field work to be in person. I know Cal State Fullerton switched gears on that. They almost were going to have 20-hour required this fall, but then confirmed with other Cal States and took that away. So that is something to consider monitoring, especially through the winter term, in order to be best prepared for spring. So we have our eyes on this, and we're just lucky to have this extension.
Megan, I just want to mention one thing real quickly. If there are any community colleges that are partnering with the CSU and your CSU is telling you right now that some of the hours are required to be face-to-face, if you need us to help out at all, or you need any information or any advocacy, please let us know. A lot of times it's just having a conversation with that partner. Sometimes if it's a newer partner, though, you might not feel comfortable to have that conversation alone. So we'd be happy to support you in any way. But at this point, it's important for you to know that this memorandum exists from the CSU, and you want to make sure like you kind of have a copy of this with you in case at any time you need to pull it out to make sure that you're advocating for our students.
Yes, and I'm sure one of us can drop the actual memo in the chat so that you don't just have the screenshot. That might be helpful. So let's dive in. Today we have planned 3 speakers to share out, including Shannon and myself. So we're so glad you're here. And we will be sharing, and so will Leticia, and then we'll open it up for anyone else to share. Now the purpose is we're all jumping back into our fieldwork courses. We have different ways of approaching how to teach and analyze videos or in-person fieldwork. And so we have a variety of things to share with you, and then we'll open it up. So we'll start with Shannon.
Okay, sorry, I am having so many technical issues this morning. I had to put my laptop in the refrigerator. It was overheating, so sorry. It's been one of those weeks. Okay, so a quick little assignment that I worked on this week with students, and I'll share that really quickly with you all. Very simple. I just have it in a PowerPoint online, and I actually did this in class with my students yesterday. We just talked about all of the effective teaching skills. So I went through and talked about at the beginning of class an overview on understanding different components of teaching. We focused on theoretical knowledge, specific knowledge, and then going through on those teaching skills and attitudes and things. And so it's all connected within the CSTPs. And then at the end of that time, this works virtually and in person. So I'm so blessed that I'm in person right now. So we watched parts of this video yesterday in class. It was a little longer than I wanted to show the whole class time, but it's a really cool introductory video of a 4th grade classroom. And the students came in and did all of their setup for the whole day on their own. So the classroom management components, and then some of the work they did in groups. It's flexible seating in the classroom. And so we went through and we talked about all of those. And so they made a list of things that they felt went really well in that lesson through the CSTPs. And then some of the things that they felt the teacher could have done better. And then we discussed, and they came up with new ideas and how that those could be improved. So just connected to the CSTP, something quick and simple, but they enjoyed working on that in their group, and then just kind of built from there. So quick and simple. All right, Renee. There we go. Okay, Megan, do you want to share yours? I think you're on mute. Or do you want me to share Leticia? Is she here?
I was sorry.
Okay, Leticia, you're here.
Leticia's next.
I am. I'm just masked. I'm on campus today, but I can share.
Awesome. Thank you.
Of course. So let me share my screen. And hopefully y'all can see. Let me get a lot of this stuff off my desktop. So this year I'm giving a couple of options to students. They can work with a teacher if they're able to find placement. They can participate in tutoring projects because there are a lot of organizations that are reaching out that want tutors. And then the more traditional alternative is a series of videos similar to what we all created together, a list of assignments. But one of the things that I did last semester, because last semester I did have quite a bit of students who were able to work with teachers on Zoom and support them that way, is I just did an online teaching observation form. So I have them do 5 of these. So they had to do the 45 hours, but they had to submit, in addition to reflection paper, they had to submit at least 5 observation forms. So 5 of the times that they were working with a teacher for 45 hours, they had to sit through and complete this. So I'm asking them to describe the classroom culture, rituals, and routines that they see. What are the learning objectives? The materials, technology used for the lesson, description of the learning activity. So what activities were the students engaged in? What was the teacher doing? What were students doing? Assessment. So how are the students being assessed, evaluated? How does the teacher check for understanding? And then I took a piece of the USC's Center for Excellence in Teaching Synchronous Online Teaching Observation Checklist. It's a mouthful, but I just took pieces of it. And so as they were observing, they had to determine, does the teacher have clear communication of learning goals? What's the teacher's timeline, time management like? What's the classroom climate? And this was, the language around this was specific around online teaching. So this time around, we're not really seeing online teaching anymore. So I took this piece of it off for those. I think I have like maybe a handful of teachers students who are working with teachers. Most of them are doing the alternate assignment or becoming after school program tutors, etc. But just wanted to show you all. And I think this is in our shared file. But if anybody wants me to send them, they can I'll put my email in the chat. But again, just a rubric for them: active learning, formative assessment. And then at the end, there's some reflection questions. So in 1 to 2 paragraphs, what did they observe? What were the overall objectives, the summary statement? What do you think worked well? What do you think? Why do you think it worked? What do you think might have been done differently? Why? And then additional thoughts or questions. So hopefully they're getting some of the pedagogical knowledge in the Education 13 class, and then being able to kind of pinpoint different things that they might do different. But that's what I was up to.
Thank you, Leticia. And I did totally use this last semester. I did add for my students their name and then like the location at the top so that they could fill those in. And then they made sure they put like the time frame that they were there and things. So overall, though, I was they were super excited to have a format that made sense for them as they were going through and observing. So thank you so much for that.
You're welcome.
I love how intentional it was too, because I even saw, like you mentioned, FERPA and the communications. And so right there, they're going to have to go, well, what's FERPA? And like making sure they have a deep understanding. So very nice on the multi-layers there, Letty. Good job on that. That's great.
And can I ask your permission? We have a link to that in our slides. Can that go out to others? I can put it in the chat right now so folks can get all three of what we're sharing right now.
Yes, definitely.
That works? Okay. I believe this will give you all of them right now. Okay, so I'm going to share out an assignment called the choice board that I got after our group allowed or invited distance learning educators Mia Young to come and present as a guest speaker. And Mia's group on Facebook has really exploded. She co-leads it with others, and I think it's grown. And in that learning group on Facebook, I was kind of scouring the web to see what K-12 teachers are using in their classroom, and then I would use some of those exact things with my students. So I'm letting you know this because mine looks really, really fun and colorful, and it combines a lot of the stuff, and it was made by Amanda Sandoval, who is a history teacher, and I've adapted it for use, and I'm going to share it with you. So one of the things I do is similar to what Shannon does and what Leticia does. I start with watching videos with the students and doing notice and wonder activities. So to get their feet wet, we say, what did you notice happening in the classroom? And what do you wonder about what you saw? And after examining those, I then teach the TPEs. I teach a couple, a day over the class for a few weeks. And we start watching videos and seeing, what do we notice? What do we wonder? How is this teacher using this TPE? What does this TPE look like in a classroom? We go to a few cheat sheets that are available online that says, what does this actually, look like in a classroom? And then we try to find that when we're doing fieldwork, videos, or in person. And so after the students have been exposed to the TPEs and have done notice and wonder, I then can combine the kind of field observation with texts that my students read during class time. So I'll go ahead and share my screen to show you the choice board. So I think you can see it now. Are you seeing my messy desktop, or are you seeing my choice board? It's not lighting up. Can anyone tell me?
We can see your choice board.
I see the choice board.
Perfect, because I was about to be very embarrassed. Okay, so this is a choice board that a history teacher has used, and I've kind of started it off to adapt it from the way I've used it in the past to be applicable to video observation. So my classes are 12 weeks long. I haven't started teaching this semester. I've been doing orientations and getting them fingerprinted and TB tested. So I haven't, fully developed this yet for this use, but I wanted to share it with you. So this choice board was already created. What it does is it allows students to have asynchronous or synchronous or in-person use of this. So if I was in person, we would go to a computer lab so that they all had a computer. But I did successfully use this in my synchronous classes in the past. And I filmed a screencast for a hybrid portion that was async. So I love that it's really versatile. So after you've directly taught how to examine TPEs and look in a video, you can then release it to them. So I've attached a culturally responsive teaching distance learning article. I have not yet selected a video, but you could link a classroom video that ties to the article, and then connect it to our OER reading, which they usually do independently, and then specific TPEs. The student's choice in this is that they get to show how they learned and processed the connections made between the reading, the video, the OER, and the TPEs. Now that might seem like a lot of information, but students don't have to make a connection from all 4 together. They're really looking to the video to connect it to best practices and themes in the course outline of record. Now in this option, they have 3 versions. They would go and duplicate a slide. This one seems like a lot of numbers, right? So the directions tell them that they're just connecting the OER to the different TPEs, and they're choosing 5 takeaways that they made, and they have to choose something that is symbolic. So they could replace the numbers, and it actually gives them access to replace icons, numbers, and how to do the images. The other way is very free form. It's like a blank piece of paper. They're going to title it. They're going to do the same thing with sharing takeaways and connections and important information. But my students always seem to choose the photo bento box. So this is the one I start them all with. I say it's a choice board that I'm modeling for you, but I'm actually forcing your hand. We're all doing bento box for the first time. And then they do it again and they can choose. What I love is that Sandoval has given us the wonderful directions link to this beautiful slide deck that you can share. It gives a history of what a box, the bento box is, and it shows you these examples for book bentos. So the reading professor in me that loves teaching about literacy and reading topics, I love this. I can't wait to teach in winter my reading course because the book bento is really inspiring. So as you can see, students, if they're in their home, they can choose symbolic items to represent takeaways, and then they can explain it. So you can see that part of this is that Instagram curator vibe, right? But it's really picking things that are meaningful. So she explains the directions, and that if you don't have physical items, you can use digital collage. So that's how I've done it. It talks about a caption needs to be placed by each item that is really symbolic, and you explain the connection. And then 2 wonderful examples are provided. There's a book bento, and there is also a history class one. So you can see that they're curating symbolic items, but then they have to share the symbolism and the meaning behind those items. So what could this look like when you're combining TPE? Well, like I said, I'm just playing around with this. I didn't actually finish the activity, but you can have students make connections and choose something symbolic that stood out and connects text to self, text to classroom video, text to text, and also text to world. So you're having your students do what good readers do. You're modeling this, of course, first, and then you're letting them go. And my students completed this in small groups, and they absolutely loved it. And the wonderful thing is, if you are teaching synchronously, you keep it in this view, your students will have tons going, and you'll see them live change, and you can just kind of sneak up and take a look at the box and then join their breakout room, and it's pretty wonderful. So I really enjoy this activity because it smashes together a lot of great information from readings and videos, OER, TPE. I kind of cram a lot in, give them lots of options, but you can start smaller than that, of course. And for me, students have reported back that they really were able to make meaningful text to text and text to video connections. They had fun, and they felt like they were kind of in the classroom because the video took that away. So they're actually kind of seeing something teachers do, and especially those techie teachers who use Google Classroom and really take off and do wonderful, cute things. I don't know if you follow folks like that, but I do on TikTok and Instagram and all of those things. And my students seemed to really appreciate watching and trying something out with me that actual teachers have been using. Choice boards are really big right now. So that is my share out for today. Thank you for letting us share 3 different ways you could kind of make assignments come alive for your students and really hit things in depth. Is there anyone that wants to have a chance to share or describe something that you've done in the classroom that you're testing out for the first time or that you've used a few times? Because we'd love to open it up to everyone.
Well, Megan, I have a question for you. So when you're setting up this beautiful board and then going through it with your students, in a online class, would you post a link, what would that look like in a Canvas shell? Can you go over that? Maybe I missed that.
So I create a Canvas module for each week, and I share what we're doing. So if they, in my synchronous class, needed the link, I just post the link, you know, the day before I'm ready to have everyone access it, or that morning. And then I say, okay, everyone, check your links. And everyone gets in and I can see them join, you know, anonymous chipmunk joins your Google slide. And then all of a sudden I see everyone starting to copy and paste. So then I hop into virtual breakout rooms and I say, hey, nothing's on your slide yet. Can you tell me, is there anything I can help with? And some are still thinking, they don't want to put anything on the slide until they're ready. So it's really easy just sharing the link. The one that went in the chat for this choice board was forced copy. That's not the way I share it with students. I share the editable version so that I can have them all in my document. And don't give away your original, make a copy of it, because sometimes you want to reuse something and then you can revert back to original, but you know, I just try to keep my docs cleaned up a little.
Megan, did Amanda Sandoval give us all permission, like she's okay for people to adapt it and use it?
She has added it to distance learning educators. When she shared it to the Facebook group, she gave a copy. So that is how I knew I could use it. And I keep her slides the way she designed it. And I have adapted from on the front and in the notes.
Awesome.
Please do let me know if there's a better way to attribute this to her besides keeping her slide the way she.
Why don't I do that really quickly, and I'll edit my version and I'll put in the attribution for you, and then I'll try to get it back.
Perfect.
Okay. All right.
I don't know if that fully answered your question, but really just sharing the editable link, and then we're synchronous when I've done it the first time. And then I have given it out and given them the option of choosing a partner, and then they would resubmit it to me by giving me the link. It would be like the whole class link. So I just go to their slide because they do place their name on it.
Does anyone else want to share with us?
Can I just ask a question, actually? So when you're doing this in class, so I heard you mention that you might go to a computer lab. If that was not available, are you finding that most of your students have access to like laptops or tablets or something like that, so you actually could do it in the class?
I have not yet used this choice board in person. My class starts as a 12-week class at the end of
that's what you said, yeah.
So I did this when we pivoted to online instruction, and mine were synchronous. I've done it asynchronously for that portion of the class. It was hybrid. And I do expect that my students will mostly have something, but I always, before I did stuff this involved with Google, I would make sure that people were partnered up. And I did purchase with Strong Workforce Funds extra laptops. So unfortunately, the pandemic stopped me from ever using them. They are brand new, charged and ready. But our brand new building we're going into does have full computer classrooms for all of our classes. So I guess amazing. I now have backup laptops that hopefully won't go out of date before they're used.
Okay, that's amazing. I was just, because this is random, but I was thinking about, like, I've done all this work online and I'm like, oh, I'm going to be back on campus. I'll just tell everyone, read my Canvas stuff before you come to class, and then we'll talk. You know, so thank you. I appreciate that.
I think there's a good push to get us in computer labs, at least to, you know, rent the room, whatever, book it when we want to, because educational technology practices and the ISTE standards should be infused into all of our core courses. And so having students use technology to further the depth of thinking of their students is really important, not just to use technology for the sake of ease, but to have them see how teachers have cultivated their lessons to get deeper. So I know I can get more deep than this. I'm just sharing like a fun activity, but I personally am still on the lookout for how to always enhance my assignments. So I hope that gives us a rationale of why we should be infusing ed tech in getting computer access for students.
Megan, sometimes we can also access Perkins funds or strong workforce funds in order to get
Right.
a cart with fully, all the equipment you need in your classroom. So if there's anybody on who needs, justification narrative for something like that, we'd be happy to help with that.
I wrote a short grant. I can't remember when. It was not very big, and I got 30 iPads on a cart that is in the back of my education classroom.
I know I've gotten them. I've gotten carts. I've gotten sets of iPads. We got smart boards. So it's like, don't start new if the rest of us have something written already we can build from, right?
Well, and right now in the pandemic, there's so much funding for technology that you can probably find a way to get your program some funding just to run one as well. So,
And don't be afraid to ask. This is a good time to ask your dean, ask your VPs when you're in meetings. Hey, we really could utilize this. Any funds available? Because sometimes they can even patch. You'd be surprised how cheap it is to actually get a computer cart with everything set up. I was shocked. I thought it was going to be almost like kind of 2 to 3 times the cost of what it actually was.
with our degree going fully OER, we were able to write another grant under the OER umbrella. And I also received a wide variety of laptops. So I have another checkout program. Instead of textbook checkout for my students, now we do a laptop checkout. So Victoria, do you have a question?
I do. On that technology note, I was kind of curious about whether or not anyone has any experience either working with swivels or purchasing those. So moving forward in the spring, there's really a large push for our students to be in, if not physically in classrooms, then to be observing in a live format. And I've had some progress with the potential for allowing the swivels to record or to stream live instruction as another format for students to maybe come on campus in a room, socially distanced, and watching live instruction. So it's kind of curious. I'm working on that. You guys are talking about grants and asking for things. That's kind of an avenue I'm trying to pursue. And I'm just curious if anybody has already created the wheel on that or looked into it or can give me some insight to something that they've experienced with that. I'm looking for any advice or input.
I'm not sure if Shannon or Megan want to start or if you want me to. Do you want me to? Okay, the ECE COP has extensive experience with Swivel, especially Rachel Johnson, Deanna Hall from Ventura City College. Is it Ventura City? I'm not sure if it's Ventura City or just Ventura College,
Okay.
sorry. But they have extensive experience with Swivels. The biggest thing that they ran into, Victoria, was there was a delay in the ordering. So if you and I'm not sure if that delay is caught up yet, but if you need them on a certain time frame, you make sure you're ordering way ahead of time just in case. In terms of it being an effective kind of different way to do what we do, they have found it to be so effective that even in the face-to-face space, they're going to keep elements of Swivel within their program. And I think they were able to get set up for $800 per Swivel set. I mean, it was really reasonable.
Okay.
And so it's definitely something that you want to consider. I mean, I know you already are, but we've already had some proven success with it. And we have at least one college that could talk to you about what's worked, what hasn't worked. We could even ask if we could do something on Swivel through one of the COPs or do a joint Swivel between the 2 COPs.
Okay.
I'm sure we could get that to happen if that would be of interest.
I'm here for it, but I don't want to hog or push that helps. Okay, so I will absolutely reach out to her. I did some cost analysis already, and that's about the ballpark. But I'd love to talk to them to see if they're doing the dual setup, because just watching the teacher isn't going to give you the full dynamic of the classroom and what's happening among students and within small groups and things of that nature. So I'm kind of curious if they're running 2 swivels and how that works and what the how effective that is and what they're using. So thank you.
I think that could be a really great topic. Actually, if anyone else would love to share, we'd love to have you share at this time. Even give feedback of what may not work from what we shared or what does work or how you think we could change it and make it even better. And then we'll switch over and continue discussing what Victoria brought up. Swivel is a great next step maybe we look into, and we do want to do a needs assessment discussion and see what would you like to focus on in this group? What deliverables could we assist with? Rosemary, you have your hand?
Hi, yeah, so just going to the observations and tech and all that, kind of both things. First off, before pandemic hit, we had just gotten a cart of Chromebooks, and I actively, I'm getting ready to start at Cal Poly next week, and my chair was like, well, don't do stuff online or they won't come to class. And I'm like, wait a minute, I was doing Google projects in class, in all my classes before, when we were in person, because I think it's important for them to go back and forth and to use it as a tool, and also to have the flexibility if we end up having to, go back online. So we had used grant money to get the laptop or the Chromebook carts, and it's really a really great tool. And I know everybody's been forced online this last year and a half, but still, for us to use it in the context of how an educator might use it when we are in person, I think it's just a great thing for us to keep using, and to look at how can it enhance what we're doing in our classrooms. So I think still my favorite thing about Chromebooks was in my college success studies class I was teaching, is I had these 17-year-olds and a 65-year-old, and the 17-year-olds were teaching the 65-year-old how to use Google, and then he was giving them life lessons on. So it was the most amazing thing. So I think it's really a valuable tool to still use, because it's now permanently in our toolbox, and it can be a really helpful thing in the world of access. And then just as far as the observations go each week, I have them record their 45 hours and identify what they watched. I made a little log for them. But I have them, because the person before me had them do a quick journal reflection each week. And I tailor them to the topic for the week. So I do go in and make a few questions. And since we're doing them virtually, I've adjusted the questions a little bit. So it's like a real low stakes writing assignment. So it's like 150 words. They can do bullet points. If they don't want to write, they can record it. But just to hone in on a few things. And then I always ask them to either make an analysis or ask a question. So what is one question you would have for this teacher? And then I try to answer the question or say where they might go find that information. So it's nothing fancy, but it has started some really great conversations. And so that's what I do. That's my share.
I like that, Rosemary. I try to do that in my Notice Wonder activities. And I love the question, I used to think, but now I think. Does anyone else use that? I used to think, and then they switched to now what they think. And it really helps them understand that as a professional and a developing educator, you're going to change over time. You're going to learn more things and adapt and evolve, and best practices do evolve. So I really like the evaluation part the best of all of these activities too. I popped in the chat the Q conference. Has anyone gone? It's so much fun. It is heavily attended by adorable elementary teachers wearing their matching t-shirts, and K-12 teachers, small group of higher learning educators. I'm part of their group called the Q Helm, higher education learning. Okay, I already messed it up. Oh well. And we just meet online every once in a while. They're starting to go on, what's that thing again? The iPad. You only can log in through Apple right now. No one knows. It's tip of my tongue. It's Friday, tip of my tongue.
Clubhouse?
Yes, thank you. It's there sometimes on Clubhouse, sometimes on Zoom. It's really wonderful to attend the conference to see what's going on in ed tech. And they do have fall Q. I think it's online, but spring Q is like the really big, super fun conference. Books way early. I've taken students to it. They adore it. It has tons of great speakers and classroom teachers that are like in it now, and it's lovely.
I just put the fall conference link in the chat. So if anybody's interested, their virtual conference is coming up in just a few weeks in October. It's I think I saw $129 for the virtual pass. And then Megan, you said the spring conference will be face-to-face in Palm Springs?
I think they're still determining that, but oh goodness.
Possibly. Okay.
Take a team of educators if you can. It's so much fun for those core teachers, like in a math for teachers class or science for educators type class, so that we're all hearing the same thing and utilizing ed tech in ways that really help us, like UDL and all that good stuff. It sounds like we might be at a good point to just continue the discussion. We have a slide for it, but we don't need it. You know, what other fieldwork issues are coming up for you as we semi-return to in-person, but might have to have things shut down? You know, what do you need that Shannon, myself, Renee, and all our volunteers and all of us can work on and get started? We do already have in the works at our next meeting, Shannon's lovely OERI librarian. So we're going to dive deep in October on the 29th with OERI. And so we're really excited to dive into that. And in addition to that, what are you thinking?
Can I ask a question about masking and vaccines? That's one of my big things. My area, we live in a smaller area and we are cut quite down the middle of, we have huge protests against masks and vaccines, and people are freaking out on one side and the other half wants them, and it's been quite complicated. And I don't know, has anyone seen if volunteers, if we are even allowed back in schools, if they have to be vaccinated or how that works? Has anyone heard anything about that? Because I can't find any concrete information about what I'm going to tell my students when we get to that point. I'm not teaching my course again until spring, but I'm trying to gather it so that I can talk about it so it can come up properly. So help.
Valerie?
In my area, I talked to the county Board of Education, and they told me before the semester started that it was up to the individual school districts to make their own procedures. However, all visitors would have to be vaccinated and masked.
Okay.
I was told. But I know that a number of school districts who originally were allowing observers have dialed that back since the case numbers have gone up. So
I'm expecting it to go completely gone again and need to be online, but I'm being hopeful because I want them to be in a classroom.
So I just basically told my students, I said, you know, you can connect with the schools and see if they will be willing to let you in, but just know that may change rapidly and you have to be vaccinated and masked in order to be able to do it anyway, according to the county. So
Thank you.
Yeah.
And it sounds like each county is making up different decisions too, depending on your area. So our county, my students attend 3 different counties. So each county has different regulations that I've been working on with them. And something else I've just started, Jennifer, that if you have an area or a district that you're close with and working with their HR department, and we're in the process of trying to create a virtual experience for my students to observe in. So
Okay.
there are some classrooms that are doing some online components. Some of it is in their after school or different tutoring environments. And so they're working on allowing my students to observe in that regard. So if you have someone that you're close to, that might be a great opportunity for you to plan for spring.
Okay, I'll go ahead and reach out to her. Thank you. I never even thought of that.
Well, originally that was a big taboo because everyone was in their homes, but most of the students are in the classroom right now. So that changes the trajectory of the regulations again. So yeah, just letting you know.
Thank you.
Roxanne, were you going to share? You're muted.
Hi, sorry. I'm up in Placer County, and just to let you know and piggyback on what Shannon just said, last semester I did have a handful of students who observed virtually, and I had tremendous support from the vice principal and principal of the virtual school. They were more than happy to have that component added to the mix. And this semester, change of personnel, so I'm not quite sure where we're going with that just yet. But it was pretty successful, I would say. So if you can, work something like that up there. And then one other comment I would have, the school, I taught my class in the past face-to-face at a school site, Rockland Elementary School. And I have kept in very close touch with the principal. And this semester, they only have allowed a few parent volunteers, no other volunteers on the campus, which would have excluded my students, of course. And of course, they do have to be masked and vaccinated, even though Placer County, they're not exactly big proponents of masking and those other things that we know are very helpful in stopping the spread. But the school is very serious about that.
I currently have a handful of students in person in classrooms doing observations, and it's slowly growing. And it just depends on the district. And, I'm having students work in network relationships, and smaller districts seem to be a little bit more accessible than some of the larger districts I'm seeing across the board. So we're kind of pushing out into places that we might not have traditionally been. And which also means some students are having to travel a little bit more than they would normally do. And as far as vaccination, I haven't come across any of, that has not been a requirement so far, but masking and following all district policies is really what we've talked about, and ensuring that we're following the protocol that the district has set up for those students. And then it's also about getting and trying and get those hours done. And because with health conditions changing, if you're in a place and getting some hours done, let's get as many as we can, because we don't know what's going to happen in the coming weeks. So it's kind of been our plan so far.
I'm trying to currently place students for my classes at my college that start in a few days, and dropping like flies. Some of the districts change their tune and aren't accepting volunteers like all of you are saying. But I try to model like, it's okay, we've got this. We've learned to be flexible. We've got a backup plan. We have a video library. There's Teach for the Bay virtual conference coming up, Teach for LA too. And you're going to have choice and enjoy it. And, this is part of just dealing with the pandemic. We've never done it before. And so I know students have been told by myself, who coordinates the program, the district policy could change at any time. If they say masks and testing or vaccination, that's fine. But a week later, it could be fully vaccinated only. Also expect to be quarantined if that comes up, and have an alternative plan, whether you're allowed on Zoom or not. But then one of the bigger districts, who ended up not serving our students this fall, said, well, we don't have an MOU that allows you to have a district email address that allows you to access their online class. They're locked down. So I'm in progress with redoing, amendments to the agreements, so that future school, whatever it looks like in any form, will be accessible. So that's one other thing Shannon and I have always been talking about, is how folks are adapting their MOUs to cover all the bases. Some of those bases we've talked about in this group before not only include a district email if required by that district, but also professional Zoom background. Some students join class from a car and stuff. So are they going to be able to use a background, or, where are they? That is the concern some of the districts brought up, but also just accessing student private information, that they can't share, that they can't broadcast. You go online, you see a TikTok of a student filming their teacher nowadays, or it's like, oh, you can't You can't share the Zoom of the cute kid project, etc. So a lot of new stuff to consider, right? Is anyone able to share an MOU for practicum? Yeah, Shannon has an MOU in our Canvas Commons, I believe, right, Shannon? And we will be able to, in my campus, share ours once it's drafted. If anyone needs one directly, we'll show you in a few minutes where to get that.
Also, for everybody who's currently teaching in class right now, please make sure you talk with your EDU students about that current TikTok challenge where we have children across TK through 12 that are vandalizing bathrooms to an obscene degree right now. In my community, we have 5 districts and we have kids that have caused thousands of dollars of damage in 3 of our 5 districts, including a brand new school. And they're like, it's so destructive. So please bring that up because that's a current topic right now. It's been in the news this week. And make sure your students are modeling what's appropriate when it comes to topics like this, because they might think it's cool to tell the kids that it's cool, and it's really not. It's a great opportunity to teach them how to be the adult in a situation, because sometimes our students are close in age to the students they're teaching, and they can't ever forget you are an adult first. Your perception of being their friend is not true. You're not there to be their friend.
My MOU, Renee, literally says that our volunteers cannot become a student's friend. And that's one of the few things the district said had to be in bold.
I love that. I love that. Some people blur those lines.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So it sounds like MOUs is still of interest. It sounds like the OERI is on the right track. As we continue to meet and go to CCC, TPP, and the EDU and the ECE, COPs, and through ACTEP, we will keep gathering ideas to make a really great December meeting plan for us all. Are there any other ideas before we share a few announcements, including the basic skills update?
I was just going to share one other thing, and I don't mind putting it in the chat. I'm trying to figure out how to share it right now, but I created a professionalism Microsoft form that my students have to complete before they go into the classroom. So essentially it gives me their CRN, their placement and information, even though I have a letter of agreement. It's the way I kind of also organize things. But then there's about 5 or 6 questions where they have to agree to maintain confidentiality. They have to abide by the code of conduct by the college, that they will acknowledge that they've read and understand the Children's Internet Protection Act. They'll comply with the volunteer requirements and safety and things of that nature. So they have to agree. It's called the Professionalism Agreement, and it's one step before they go into the observations. Just a way of kind of, I'm gonna figure that out right now that I'm sharing, but not sharing my students' information. So I might have to create a blank one and then put it in there. So it might take me a second, but I'll share that out, and you can add to it or change it or improve on it.
That's awesome. I think my college's fieldwork handbook is online. It was modeled after Cal State Long Beach's fieldwork handbook, and it really goes in depth about that. And we usually have students sign off that they have read the handbook.
Victoria, I'll send that out in to the listserv if you don't mind, if that's okay with you. Okay, I'm going to attribute you there so that it's clear. And I actually do the same thing sort of in a contract at the beginning of the semester for that course. So if you're okay, can I combine them and it be like a full contract, and then we can, okay, and I'll resend that out to everyone.
Please, yes. I've taken so many great ideas from all of you. If I give one tiny thing.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Another component that we're hearing and talking about is the need for subs and tutors, and the shortage is coming again. So preparing for that. So a big part of that I took into play is I have monthly meetings for my students. We've been online, so it was through Zoom. But again, I'm blessed enough to be back on campus fully right now. So I am actually running a job fair on my campus for my students next week. So I have my county office of ed coming. I have 2 different after school programs coming. I have 2 high schools coming that need tutors. And so there's about 8 or 9 different companies that'll be their community partners. But you can do the same thing on Zoom, where you can create a virtual job fair so that each program can have their own breakout room and students can choose which ones to attend. But it helps students practice some of those interviewing skills. And it also gives the community partners an opportunity to find some help because they need it tremendously right now. So thinking about opportunities like that, I worked with my CTE program, plug there, so that we could work with our internship and networking company on our campus. And so the two of us, our programs combined, created the job fair that's coming up next week. So again, pulling in some of those CTE dollars, connect with whoever's running those types of programs on your campus. They'll help you. They'll get the community partners there for you. It won't take as much work and effort, but there's a need. And so that's a great opportunity right now. I'll open the slide back up.
I love the idea of the virtual job fair. All right, so we'll start with the CBEST basic skills kind of update. If you haven't heard yet, AB 130, right, has come through, and it has two main parts. One is about basic skills update with updates to how you can meet the requirement. And that basically has added, in addition to the CBEST and AP or SAT exams, etc., coursework in English, reading, and math. That can be another way students can meet the requirement, or if they have exams that fulfill part of it, it can be a combination. Now, transfer universities, the CSU, UC, etc., are the ones that will do the paperwork. So at the community college, what's happened so far is some folks have been asked, can you give me a list of your English, reading, and math courses that satisfy this requirement? However, right now, that's a challenge because it would basically be so many courses, and we need to ensure that these will really count. So next slide, the parameters they've provided so far are B or better, but that's a challenge because pass, no pass also counts, but pass, no pass at our community colleges includes a C. So that's one of the things being addressed right now to fine tune the way this is placed into practice. And it has a lot of other criteria like being degree applicable, and technically a writing class could also satisfy the reading requirement and so forth. And we can put in the chat the link of all of the options on the official leaflet from the CTC. I'll put that in just a second. But on the next slide, we wanted just to notify you that if you're already thinking about any issues or concerns, that there is a AB 130 group led by CSU Vice Chancellor for Teacher Ed Marquita Grano-Shire. Now, Steve Bautista of ACTEP and Santa Ana College is a work group member representing community college concerns. And the long story short, Shannon, you're on you're doing your form. Long story short is they're starting with the basic skills requirement issues in this work group. Later, they're going to address the second half of AB 130, which is about the subject matter, right? So right now in elementary pathway, which many of our students are on, liberal studies degree is expected to be the way you meet the subject matter requirement. And we're trying to align in this work group through Steve and others that the subject matter competency should include the AAT and eventually BA, and what other BAs could count, could child development count, etc. So the status again is they're starting in the work group to address the basic skills. It's more straightforward. Then they'll address the subject matter competency. And later they're going to look at the whole AAT elementary teacher education and consider changes that those two other things might start, like loosening it up, for example. So if you think of any concerns, you can contact me, Shannon, Renee, or Steve Bautista, because we want to make sure Steve has information about all of our issues, because we can do a group think and really attack this and try to make it best for our students. So I'll go ahead in the chat and put this update in case you hadn't heard it yet. And then we just have a few announcements to make. So ACTEP and CCCTPP do have an upcoming statewide joint meeting on October 6th at 10. So save the date for that. And then also, next slide, ACTEP does have a convening coming up. The convening is going to be November 19th from 9 to 2 on Zoom. And the great news is that if you are a current member, the convening registration fee is waived. If you are not yet a member and your college has not been a member before, we welcome new community colleges to join. I'm on the board, so I'm saying we because I'm part of both groups. We welcome those new community colleges to join at no cost. So first-time community college members can join, and then you're coming to the convening. It's included. We will be sending a renewal list soon to those colleges who haven't renewed, because we know the adopted budgets are coming in from the board and that we have funding that we want to tag for membership for some of us. And of course, especially for new folks, I know one of you said you are newer to teaching the education class. The next slide shares the resource that we always remind folks of that has a video library for alternative fieldwork and other resources. This was one of the big products that we have created. Shannon, could you pop the link in the chat to it so it's easy access? And then we will share the slide deck with you in another communication. So long story short, thank you so much for coming to our meeting today, for talking to us about fieldwork and how it's evolving and changes and challenges. If you want to share any curricular ideas at a future upcoming meeting, please do. The next topic will be OERI pathways. So if you have something to share, we can add that to our agenda. We are so excited to have Shannon and her librarian really open our eyes to what's possible. So I'll hand it to Shannon for any closing thoughts.
I am so excited that Kelsey said that she would join us. She has been our OER librarian since the beginning of our whole process. And she has been extremely resilient because we have had her on grants and she has had to apply almost every year to come back and work with us. And so it has been amazing that the work that she has done. She has created OER content, OER textbooks. Her skills are just phenomenal and so exciting that she's going to come in and share. So she's going to talk to us about how we properly attribute. She's going to explain to us how we do some of the research, how we find what we need to look for, and then how we can take that content and embed it into our Canvas courses. So it's kind of a tutorial. I'm really excited to get to share that with you. So I'm hoping we'll get quite a bit covered in the time that she's here. And she will also be a resource and willing to share with you at any time. So we'll get you her information, and whenever you have questions, you can just email her and she will get it all or anything you need to at any time. So she's amazing at that. So exciting for sure. There is the link to our Canvas Commons project, and I am still working alongside a couple of colleagues from other colleges. I see Megan's here. I know Cheryl has office hour right now. So I'm working with Megan Bennett from Clovis Community and Cheryl from Fresno City, and we're working on creating a full OERI education intro course. So we'll have all of this embedded and taking all of the resources that we've gotten together over the last year and a half and make sure that we include that in the course for you all. It'll be on the Commons, we're hoping by spring. So Victoria, I got that link. So what I'll do is she created it in a form which I absolutely love. I hadn't even gotten that fancy yet. Mine is still in a Word doc. So I'll add to your form, I'll update it, and then I'll get it out to everybody on the listserv. So thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. We hope you have a wonderful weekend.
Yes, appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.